Sir, shall we start?
Yeah. Yes.
So, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the fourth day of the series of programs on the important topics of the Companies Act 2013. And today is going to be dealt by, I think you might have enjoyed all the three parts. The one is memorandum, and other is articles of association, and other is issuance of shares. And the second part of the issuance of shares will be going to be dealt today by Sir. And without waste of much of your time, I just hand over the proceedings to Sir. And it is a reminder that Saturday is going to be a bonus session for you all with the help of our resource person, Jayaraman Sir. And that is going to be dealt by 3:30 to 5:30. Kindly bear in mind. And now over to Jayaraman Sir for the remaining part. Thank you.
So, good evening, my dear delegates. Thank you very much, Mr. G. Srinivas Rao Garu, for the great introduction. So, continuing the discussions, yesterday I left up to the previous topic. Calls in advance. What are the provisions in the Companies Act? Calls in advance, Section 50 and 51. Now, calls in advance can be accepted by the directors of the company only when the articles provide. Very interesting point. From the company's perspective, calls in advance is not a use to the company at all. See, I go as per my planning, as per my project planning and all that. So I require money as per my timetable, as per my vision. So calls in advance is more for the operational convenience of the shareholder, of the member. For example, the member may be holding, say, about 100 shares. He's in a remote village and the application money is 250. He paid 250 rupees for 100 shares. Allotment money, another 250 rupees. First call 200, second call 200, third call 100. Now the shareholder says, hey, look, every time, of course, now all the online remittance, everything has come, but those days it was very difficult. So every time I says, I can't go to a bank, purchase a demand draft and send it to and all that. So calls in advance is more an administrative convenience for the members. So therefore, it is of no much use to the company because it's not as per the project budget. So only when the articles provide, the company may accept calls in advance. And please understand, calls in advance is not a part of the share capital. When you pass an entry, don't route it through share capital or share application or allotment account. Straight entry will be bank account debtor to calls in advance. That's all. That is the straight entry. It doesn't acquire the character of a share calls in advance. So obviously it will not have any voting power. Now, and once they are paid the calls in advance, that's it. As soon as the call is paid, it will be adjusted. Now, the rate of interest, calls in advance will not be eligible for dividends, as I already told you, but they will get some rate of interest. Now, this is a big controversy. Is calls in advance a source of income for the member? I doubt very much. That is not the intention of legislature. It's more, I told you, it's operative administrative convenience. So over a period of time, so what the company also will do, keep it in some deposit account. That's all. When they keep it in some deposit account and the very low rate of interest is paid, that is transferred to the member concerned. So generally, the articles provide around a low rate of interest of 6% calls in advance. But then in one Manipal Industries case, the shareholders can decide 10% rate of interest also. That was told there. And this is a very interesting point that once you take the calls in advance, you cannot refund it. It has to be adjusted against the call. No fun here that you take the calls in advance. Again, he says that please return the money back. I'll return back after some time. All that is not permitted. Either you don't give the calls in advance. Once you have taken the calls in advance, the matter ends there. Then, in the event of winding up, this calls in advance which the company received, where do they stand? Does it acquire the character of a share? No, already told you. Does it acquire the character of a debt? No, very interesting. So you cannot add it to the creditors in that line. It will be standing after the creditors and before the equity share capital. Somewhere in between, in the event of liquidation, that calls in advance will stand. But again, here also, calls in advance should be taken in the bona fide interest of the company. These are all the points you find in the Act regarding calls in advance. We'll now quickly run through forfeiture of shares. There's nothing special in this point, only a quick reminder. Forfeiture of shares is a punishment given to the shareholder, to the member, for non-payment of call money on time, even after giving extension of time. So in forfeiture, what happens? Your name will be removed from the register of members, and more importantly, whatever money you are paid, for example, out of 10 rupees, you paid 7 rupees, balance 3 is said to be paid. That 7 rupees, whatever you are paid, will be adjusted, will be taken. That it is a most unjustified method, will be taken away from the company since you are not paid the 3 rupees call. So you have to follow the rules very carefully, because the court can interfere and give you stay order if you don't follow the procedures very carefully. So what are the procedures? One, calls can be forfeited only for the non-payment of calls or interest on calls, not for other reason. You are not paid the call, or even interest on call you are not paid, we can forfeit it. Now, very interesting point. Can you use the forfeiture method for any debt due to the company? For example, let us say one member took some goods from the company on credit. He is yet to pay. There's a debtor-creditor relationship. Or, sorry, the other way around. So, he has given some advance to me. He has yet to pay the calls in advance. So, can I adjust that debt due? Yes, if the article so provide. You got an automatic right to forfeit the shares for non-payment of calls or interest on calls, but you can also go for forfeiture for a debt due to the company only if the article so provide. Then proper notice has to be given, 14 days notice and all, and you have to tell that in very clear terms that it is a call notice, all those very clearly. It's a forfeiture notice, it has to be mentioned. Then finally, the board has to pass a resolution for forfeiture, and forfeiture should be in the bona fide interest of the company. It should not be used as a method to just punish the shareholder. It all depends on facts of the case. You follow all the principles of natural justice, and then you can go ahead with the forfeiture of shares. Now, what about the effect of the forfeiture? Your name will be struck off from the register of members, the person whose shares have been forfeited. And I already told you whatever amount you has paid will be appropriated by the company. And obviously, he need not pay the balance money because his shares have been forfeited. But very interesting point, this is relieved from the liability of the balance 3 rupees in my given example only when the company is a running concern. Tomorrow, when the company goes into liquidation, yes, he will come in the list of contributories, B list of contributories, because he has originally agreed to pay 10 rupees per share, the limited liability. So anyway, now the liability to pay on forfeiture, the liability to pay the 3 rupees will not be there. But for any reason, if the company goes into winding up, then he will be put in the list of contributories, and if the present member at that time does not pay, he has to pay. Then, what about the reissue of the forfeited shares? What are the provisions? Yes, the absolute discretion of the board of directors to whom he will reissue the act is not clear. But they say they have given the powers to the board of directors of the company as such. So the power is vested with the board. We can give it to any person. But practically tell me to whom you will give. We cannot give it to the directors because unjust enrichment will come. Then to whom will give? There are hundreds of employees. We don't give it to the employee. Many of you do not know. We will reissue the forfeited shares only to that member from whom it was forfeited. Surprising. So long as you tell him that we'll forfeit and all that, he will not take any action. He will not listen to our notices and all. Once you forfeit and send him, then he will come running. He says, sir, I've honestly lost 7 rupees and all, sir. So what we do, we reissue them at a discounted price. So what is the reissue price? The law says the amount what you have already received plus the reissue price must not be less than par value. So in the given example, you need not make any profit also on reissue. If you want, you can make it. So you can reissue at 3 rupees or more than 3 rupees. So that is the rule which you have to follow. Then once you have reissued, the liability of the old shareholder comes to an end. It is the new shareholder who will be liable. Of course, the new shareholder, you will take the entire amount. But still, if you are taking part amount, he will only be liable for the balance money and all that. So then how do you give the share certificate to him when you forfeit it? Better you take back the share certificate from the person whose shares have been forfeited. If he surrenders, excellent. Then in that case, what we do, it's like a transfer of shares. We make endorsement in the favor of a member to whom the shares are issued, and then we'll give it to him. On the other hand, if the original shareholder does not surrender the share certificate, we will issue a duplicate share certificate complying with all the provisions after giving public notice in the newspaper, all that. So this is how we go ahead with the reissue of forfeited shares. Surrender of shares, very interesting. I have checked up in the entire Companies Act, there is no such concept called surrender. Even table of model articles also does not talk of surrender. It has come more as a practice. Technically, there is no difference between forfeiture and surrender. Both are one and the same. When do I go for surrender? The circumstances are equivalent to forfeiture of shares. In other words, you are not paid the call money, interest on calls. Instead of forfeiture, we'll go for surrender. So the procedure for surrender is almost same that of forfeiture. The only difference you find is forfeiture is a forceful act, surrender is a voluntary act. It's a question of ego problem. A shareholder is so upset, a member is so upset, probably when you send the forfeiture notice to him, he says, who the hell you are you to forfeit? I told you it's a issue, ego issue. So he himself comes to the registered office and throws the share certificate at the face of the company secretary and says, go to hell, I'm not bothered, something like that. So we will follow the same procedure, same resolution like forfeiture. So surrender is also almost equivalent to forfeiture. So only difference you find is forfeiture is a forceful act and the surrender is a voluntary act. So the issue of giving notices and all will not arise because he himself has surrendered the shares. So you should never confuse surrender with buyback. In surrender also, whatever money we have received will not be returned back, unlike in case of buyback of shares. Then alteration of share capital. Now that we have finished various types of shares and other things, we will revert back to the memorandum in which we have already finished alteration of memorandum name clause, situation clause, objects clause. We will now look at alteration of capital clause. Now, alteration of capital clause is of two types if you carefully look at it. Alteration of share capital, reduction of capital has two separate meanings covered under two sections. They are not interchangeable words. Alteration of share capital is also alteration of memorandum. Reduction of capital is also alteration of memorandum. Now, alteration of capital is specifically told in section 61, and this is the only clause in the memorandum where you can alter by just ordinary resolution. But one interesting point you find is the power to alter the alteration of the share capital is derived from the articles. If the articles are silent, you cannot do alteration of share capital. Very interesting point. The power is derived from the articles. See, in my opinion, though the new Companies Act has simplified many things, still there are hundreds and hundreds of areas which call for more simplification. I don't know why the article should authorize and all that. You give powers to the company. Anyway, unnecessarily, still the Companies Act stands complicated. Anyway, so general meeting, you have to pass ordinary resolution. Now, one more interesting point in alteration of share capital is, you don't define what is alteration of share capital. The Act itself in section 61 says, these are the 5 examples of alteration of share capital. Very interesting. Increasing the authorized capital of the company. Fair enough. The present authorized capital is 25 lakh equity shares of 10 rupees each, aggregating 2.5 crores. You increase it to 30 lakh equity shares of 10 rupees each, aggregating 3 crores. Increase in authorized capital is alteration. Second, consolidation of shares into shares of larger amount, subdivision of shares. In consolidation and subdivision, ultimate amount, there will not be any increase. For example, you have 100, you have, let us say, 1,000 shares of 10 rupees each, aggregating 10,000 rupees. It is consolidated into 100 shares of 100 rupees each. You increase the nominal value and reduce the number of shares, amounting to 10,000. That's called consolidation. This is normally not done. Subdivision of shares into shares of smaller amount. Reverse of it. 100 shares of 100 rupees each, aggregating 10,000, is subdivided into 1,000 shares of 10 rupees each, aggregating 10,000 rupees. This is subdivision. You may be practically wondering why this consolidation subdivision arises. What is a practical utility? Very simple. I'll give you an example. When Satyam Computers was doing very well, mark my language, not the scam, I'm talking much before that. When Satyam Computers was doing very well, 10 rupee share was quoting at 10 rupee share was quoting somewhere around 2,000 rupees plus in the open market. 10 rupee share. So 2,000 rupees, those days market lot of 100 shares was there. So 2,000 rupees into 100 rupees, if you want to purchase minimum, you have to purchase 100 shares. So I'm a small investor, he has to shell out 2 lakh rupees to purchase 100 shares of Satyam Computers. Now, those days, for an ordinary investor, 2 lakhs is precisely a big amount. Then I still remember at that time, Ramling Raju, he went to SEBI and shouted at the SEBI chairman, because I was there at SEBI on some other meeting. I could hear all this. He told the SEBI chairman, why the hell you have fixed the nominal value should be 10 rupees per share? Why not? You give us freedom. He says, if 10 rupees per share, the market value is 2,000 rupees. If you give me freedom to subdivide the shares into 1 rupee per share, then the market value will come down to 200 rupees. So 200 into 100 shares, 20,000 rupees. So the small investors can enter back into the market. Oh, then I realized the utility of subdivision. So earlier you had 100 shares of 10 rupees, aggregating 1,000 rupees. Now you will have 1,000 shares of 1 rupee, aggregating 1,000 rupees. These are all certain advantages in consolidation and subdivision. Then the fourth alteration is converting of shares, fully paid up shares into stock and reconverting. Very honestly speaking, the concept of stock is never there in India. Practically, it is only in theory. Stock is a consolidated amount. That breakup will not be there. In shares, number of shares, nominal value, total amount. All the 3 breakups will be there. Stock is just a consolidated amount. Somehow, I thought it has to be removed in the new Companies Act. In the many of the draft also we recommended this, but somehow they just brought it. Stock is a consolidated amount. For example, you give a stock for 1,500 rupees. You can give a stock for 1,552 rupees 10 paisa. Some stupidity to the core, in my opinion. So if you want to convert to the shares, so stock, there won't be breakup. So stock is there. In fact, frankly speaking, we don't call it as a share exchange. We call it as stock exchange only. So anyway, convert the fully paid up into stock and reconvert it. Cancelling the shares not issued, very interesting. Issued capital, if you cancel, it will come to reduction of capital. It is authorized capital to issued capital. The difference, you want to cancel it. These are examples given in the Act itself that it will amount to alteration of share capital. So you have to file the prescribed form with ROC within 30 days. But for increase in authorized capital, you have to pay the registration fees also. So these are called the alteration of share capital, which if the articles authorize, you pass ordinary resolution and go ahead with this proposal. Reduction of capital. Reduction of capital is a very serious issue. So it requires special resolution plus the approval of the tribunal, confirmation of the tribunal. So special, why they are so particular in reduction of capital? Because you are returning back the shareholders' money. Reduction of capital. See, please understand, already limited liability and creditors are suffering. So if you return back the shareholders' money, there is a, in winding up also what happens, creditors' money has to go back, and the strength of the creditors is the preference shareholders, equity shareholders' money. So in reduction of capital, when you return back their money, creditors are affected very badly. It's a very serious issue. Already the creditors are suffering because of the limited liability and all that. Fine. So what the law says very clearly, reduction of capital also can be affected only when the articles provide. Well, very funny. Then how do you do the reduction of capital? By passing special resolution and obtaining the confirmation of the tribunal. Another point, just like alteration of share capital, section 66 tells you the 5 methods by which you can do reduction of capital. So you don't come to your own conclusion as to what exactly is reduction of capital. Before that, if there is some arrears in the repayment of deposits, though and interest thereon, you cannot go for reduction of capital. So this is to protect the deposit holders. Now, what are the 5 examples of reduction of capital which is given in the Act itself? By reducing or extinguishing the liability in respect of uncalled capital. Hey, look at the fund. 100 rupees nominal value per share, 75 rupees paid up. I am now making it to 75 rupees nominal value and paid up. Practically, if you look at it, we are not returning back the money to the shareholders. Then why should you call it as reduction of capital? See, if this is not explained, any person will take a stand. It is not reduction of capital. No, you are extinguishing a liability of 25 rupees. Creditors are affected. Hence, the law says it is also reduction of capital. Similarly, second example, by returning the money not wanted for the purpose of the company, 100 rupees nominal value paid up is reduced to 75 rupees nominal value and paid up and returned back 25 rupees. This is a classic example of reduction of capital. Third example of reduction of capital is by paying the paid up capital not wanted for the purpose of the company on the footing that it may called up again so that liability is not extinguished. Very interesting. 100 rupees nominal value fully paid up. We are reducing it to 100 rupees nominal value, 75 rupees paid up. And we all return that 25 rupees on a condition whenever we want, we'll call it again. Now the question is, where is the shareholder benefited? Temporary benefit only you are giving to him. You are returning back 25 rupees. Again, you will call back that 25 rupees. No, law says very beautifully, hey, here also the creditors are affected. So it is also a case of reduction of capital. You have to follow the procedure. Very interesting. Then the fourth one is combination of any of the methods. Out of 100 rupees, 20 rupees, this method, 30 rupees, like that. Then fifth one, writing of the capital. This is the popular method of reduction of capital which we follow. That is in case of loss-making company, reduction of restructuring, we do it. What do you do in reduction of capital? We ask all the people to make sacrifices. 100 rupees nominal value per share we'll treat as 10 rupees nominal value and paid up, and we'll ask them to sacrifice the 90 rupees. And that money, whatever we receive, will be used to write off the fictitious assets, losses, preliminary expenses, and other miscellaneous expenses, whatever is remaining in the balance sheet. To eliminate the losses from the balance sheet, who will bear the loss? The shareholders will bear the loss. Very surprising. Here, shareholder is not benefited. Shareholder is losing the money. 100 rupees nominal value paid up capital is reduced to 10 rupees nominal value paid up capital. He has lost 90 rupees, but still the law says it is also a case of reduction of capital. Whether he is gaining or losing, let the tribunal decide. There could be something more than what it appears to the eye. So these are all the cases of reduction of capital. And you are, after passing special resolution, you have to apply to tribunal, and tribunal will give notice to the central government, registrar, SEBI, if it is a listed company, all creditors, and you can represent to them why the reduction should not be permitted and all that. Then, very interesting. Most of the creditors will not allow for reduction of capital because you are bypassing them. The money of the shareholders is repaid, liability is reduced. So definitely it affects the creditors. So what the tribunal will do, they will ask the company, first you pay off the creditor. Or if it is not possible, you get his consent. If that is also not possible, you give security to him. So otherwise, they will not allow reduction. And one more amendment now is, when application is made, the tribunal should be satisfied accounting treatment proposed by the company for such reduction is in conformity with the accounting standards, and the auditor has to give a certificate to the tribunal. If you follow all this, reduction of capital. Then one more problem in reduction of capital is preference shareholders. So if preference shareholders are there, this is another problem. That is, if preference shareholders are there, they has to be paid first, or at least you have to take their consent, because they have got preferential right. Without touching them, how can you repay the equity shareholders? Then once the reduction is effected by the tribunal, you have to register with ROC. ROC is only the controlling mechanism. That it is now the discretion of the tribunal. They may add after the name of the company and reduced. Probably it depends on the magnitude of the reduction. So indirectly, tribunal will try to tell you, hey, look, this company has already cheated the creditors to, I will not say cheated, already they have incurred so much of loss, and it's an indication to the other people who are investing to the company that in the name itself, they say XYZ Limited and reduced. So if you are dealing with the company, read their balance sheet, P&L account number of times, and better involve yourself in informed decision making before you take any risk. Sometimes they may ask you to publish in the newspapers also, as the tribunal may direct. And once the reduction is announced, forget the old liability. So the new liability only will be there. Now, one interesting point is, you give notice to the creditor and you file an affidavit to the tribunal that we have given the notice to the creditor. You file an affidavit. Now, based on the affidavit, tribunal goes ahead. Later on, it turns out the company played mischief. They didn't give some notice to the creditor. Now that creditor comes to the tribunal and says, sir, I don't know about it. I'm not interested to agree for the reduction of capital. Then no issue. That such people, the tribunal will say, as far as your debt is concerned, the company will treat as if reduction of capital has not taken effect. So these are all the interesting points on reduction of capital. So please understand, just like that, you cannot return the money. I recently came across one private company. Now that private company had a building. They did not do any business. They had a land and building. They sold it off. Now they sold it off for 2-3 crores. That money is lying in the company. Now only share capital and then money. Now they say, now you cannot return back that money. They have no interest in doing other business. They don't want to wind up the company. Then I said, go for reduction of capital, that's all. You try to convince the tribunal there are no creditors and all that, then obviously tribunal will sanction. No one is affected. You can take your money back. Now, these are all cases where the shares are returned back, but they are not reduction of capital attracting section 100. You don't have to follow the procedure because the respective section itself has an inbuilt procedure. For example, surrender of shares, forfeiture of shares is not reduction of capital. Even though you reduce the shares, whatever money is paid will be appropriated. Cancel of shares, redemption of preference shares. Yesterday we discussed redemption of preference shares. Already we take safeguards in the act itself. We create CRR and all that. So it will not amount to reduction of capital. Similarly, purchase of shares by in these 6 cases also there is a kind of reduction of capital, but that is permitted within the Companies Act itself. So the provisions of section 100 will not apply. As I told you, stock is only a consolidated amount. You can convert, you cannot directly issue stock. You can convert the fully paid up shares into stock and reconvert the stock into fully paid up shares. Leave it there. Now comes to share certificate in the Companies Act. The whole provisions will not apply to demat. And of course, demat is compulsory for listed companies, and now they are amended. Public companies also, they have made demat compulsory. So our discussion is only restricted to private companies. So demat is not compulsory for private companies. So all these provisions definitely apply to private companies. We are talking of physical share certificates. One. See, there are a number of participants who are raising their hand to clear doubts. Now I am running short of time. So I will not be in a position to clarify the doubts when the seminar goes on. We have already told you my number is available. Please send an email or even SMS or even a WhatsApp message. I will definitely answer them. And if it is of any public importance, I'll put it in the group. Please cooperate with me. Fine. A share certificate is a declaration to the outside world. Let us understand the legal effect of a share certificate. Every company, once you allot shares, you give a share certificate. What is the legal effect? Back to basics. Share certificate is a declaration given by the company to the outside world. What is the declaration? Hey, look, the person whose name is entered in the share certificate is a bona fide shareholder of the company. When the company issues a share certificate, they are telling the outsider, look, this guy is a shareholder. Please follow very carefully. The company never said he is a member. Share certificate is only a declaration of title. It is only evidence of title. Then what is title? Your name appearing in the register of members is only the title. There are a lot of evidences of title. One of such evidence is the share certificate. So share certificate is a evidence of title. So naturally when the shares are written in my name, share certificate gives my name, obviously I'll be the member. But there could be a situation, your name is appearing in the share certificate, but by mistake, your name never appears in the register of members. You are not a member. So technically, if you see, the law only says, if LWPARAMA, you have been given a share certificate, is only a bona fide shareholder of the company. So it's one of the evidence of title. Evidence of title to tell that you are a shareholder or a member. Real title is constituted only when the name appears in the register of members. And that too, he says it's a prima facie evidence of title. It is not title by itself. Prima facie means you can dispute that. You can also prove that the company can prove at a later stage that share certificate was given by mistake and is not the member of the company. So this is the legal effect. The point I want you to observe is share certificate, even though practically we think the shareholder is a member, membership is constituted only when your name appears in the register of members. It's only evidence of title. There are various evidences. Share certificate is one of the evidence, and it is a prima facie evidence which can be disputed in a court of law. Then, and what should be the share certificate? The law is very clear. The rules are very clear. Name, number of shares, distinct number, folio number, amount paid up will be placed for endorsement. If you have taken the complete 10 rupees, then no subject of discussion. Otherwise, 2 rupees application money, allotment money and all, there will be space for endorsement. All that has to be done in the share certificate only. And who can issue the share certificate in pursuance to board resolution? Please remember, MD or some other fellow cannot issue a certificate just like that. And when you issue a share certificate, common seal, if you got it, should be affixed. Otherwise, no, it's not compulsory. And it is compulsory that 2 directors of the company and one director and secretary must sign if they have got a secretary. And after allotment, you should give the share certificate within 2 months. These are some of the provisions. Now, very interesting. What are the provisions of law for issue of duplicate share certificate? This is one area that has a lot of legal implications. So I thought I'll spend some time on this. There are 2 types of duplicate share certificate, though both are called duplicate. One is renewed share certificate, the other is real duplicate share certificate. In renewed share certificate, what happens is, renewed share certificate, the original was surrendered to the company because it was defaced, mutilated, torn, worn out. So I have no fear because original has come back to me. So instead, I'll give another share certificate that we call it as renewed share certificate. But the other one, you have really lost the share certificate. It was burnt, it was lost, it was destroyed. Then there is no original certificate with the company. Then another certificate is called duplicate certificate. Whether it is renewed or duplicate certificate, the procedure for issue is one and the same. So the share certificate will be issued. Now, if you want to issue a duplicate share certificate, no, you cannot issue a duplicate share certificate unless the board gives the consent, and you have to pay a fee. 20 rupees is the fees which is charged. The other day we discussed, if you want, you can write in your articles even a higher fee also. 20 rupees your cost is. Anyway, 20 rupees. And the company will take proper evidence and indemnity to the satisfaction. Why? I'll tell you later. Because ultimately, you see, tomorrow if the company has issued a wrong share certificate, duplicate one, and the original is traceable in the market, company will be liable. We'll discuss all that later. So company should take extraordinary care. To take affidavit from him, take indemnity bond, that tomorrow, if I am liable, the company is liable because original is traced out of the market, then you shall reimburse the loss, whatever incurred. So we take indemnity also and issue the duplicate share certificate. Then out of expense, all that we take. And when you issue the duplicate or renewed certificate, you put a rubber stamp on it very clearly, duplicate or renewed, issued in lieu of certificate number and all that. And whatever certificate was surrendered, it has to be preserved and cancelled after 3 years. You will keep it and cancel it. These are the things. Now, I will now specifically look at, though I have not started transfer of shares, I'll come to that slightly later. Void and forged transfer, what is the implication? So a finance manager or a company secretary, in a private company, you don't have company secretary. It's the finance manager who does most of the work, even as an employee or as a consultant. You have to be very careful in all these issues. I have now taken 3 different situations. Please watch the screen very carefully. What transfer of shares details, I'll come to that later. Situation 1, please see. A is the member of the company, right? Shares are in his name appears in the register of members. This A, he actually sold the shares to B. He actually sold the shares. He has given the payment, all that. B has given that. But then A tells the company, I've lost the share certificate. Look at the situation. Because in India, the ethics and values have come down very badly. First situation could be A has really sold the shares to B, but he reports to the company, he has lost the share certificate, I have not sold. Situation 2, A's share certificate someone has stolen, really they have stolen, and someone has forged the share certificate with all the documents and given it to B. Both situations I am considering. The legal effect is one and the same. I repeat again, A's shares have gone to B. One is through forgery. Second is A might have really transferred the shares to B, But A is taking a stand with the company that I have lost the share certificate. So please see the diagram. A has sold the shares to B. Takes the B has taken. B is not aware of all this and all. In good faith, he paid consideration. He took it. But A writes a letter to the company regarding forgery. When forgery was there, he might have written the letter. Even without forgery, stupid fellow, he writes the letter. Stop here. So A forged the shares, or A himself plays the mischief. From B to C, C to D, D to E, blank transfers are going on. I'll come to blank transfer slightly later. All of you are aware. In blank transfer, only the transferor's particulars in the share transfer deed is filled up. The buyer transferee's particulars are not filled up. So this instrument of transfer is called blank instrument of transfer. And along with the share certificate, he will hand over it to B, and B will pay the purchase consideration. So as far as A and B is concerned, the transfer has gone to B. B, if he wants, he will send it to the company for registration of transfer. It takes a lot of time. So what B will do, he will give it to just a C, blank transfer, and C to D, like that it goes on. And ultimately it went to some fellow called Z, blank transfers. After some time, now Z fills up all the particulars of transferee. He affixes the stamp duty and send it to the company. Please register the transfer in my name. In the meantime, A writes a letter to the company that there is a forgery. What you will do as a finance manager or company secretary, what the company has to do. Please see very carefully. A shares might have forged, it doesn't really matter, or A might have really sold the shares to B and is playing mischief. So it went for blank transfer and it went to Z. Z now sends it for transfer. Now Z says, I am not bothered about all this. As far as I am concerned, I purchased from X or Y for consideration in good faith. Please register the transfer in my favor. I am having the share certificate, instrument of transfer, blah, 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 blah. In the meantime, A writes a letter to the company. We should not answer this based on logic. You should know the legal position. The first and foremost thing everyone should know, that the company is not an adjudicating authority. You cannot settle disputes. The company is not an adjudicating authority. Don't call a roundtable conference. Don't call A, B, C, D and say you threaten A or you threaten Z. Nothing can be done. You don't have to file any police complaint at all that. So what the company has to do? You are only a registering authority. You are not a adjudicating authority. You cannot settle the disputes. Second point you must know, as far as company is concerned, A is the member. In the rest of members, A only is the member. And the company must listen to A. Beautiful legal position. So even if A is telling lies, you don't bother. You have to listen to A only. Of course, these problems are not there in DMAT. I'm talking about a private company where physical shares you got. So you have to listen to A only. You have to listen to A only. That's all, story is over. A has written a letter. So you don't touch A's name. No question of registration of transfer in favor of Z. Then third, what the company has to do, keep the original documents with you, take photocopies and distribute the photocopies to all the affected party, A, B, C, D, Z. Just like in Sai Baba temple, they distribute prasad to everyone. Go on distributing photocopies and tell them, go to the court of law tribunal and settle the issue. Matter is simple. Go to the court of law tribunal and settle the issue. So from this, what do you understand? No notice of trust will be entered to the rest of members. As far as company is concerned, I repeat, as far as company is concerned, who is the member? A is the member. I will listen to him. Over. So you should understand the legal position clearly. You are not an adjudicating authority. You cannot settle disputes. You don't verify all these documents. Situation 2. Let them go to tribunal, and based on the tribunal order, whatever they tell, you will do it. Situation 2. Almost the same situation like situation 1, but one small change here. One change is A, same thing. A did the mischief and all, gave it to B. Then B was very smart. He sent it to the company for registration of transfer. B did not take any risk. He sent it to the company for registration of transfer. And the company registered the transfer because the forgery was done perfectly. Company registered the transfer in favor of B. They removed A's name from the register of members and put B's name in the register. So from B to C, C to D, C to D, E, F, like that, it went to Z. Now things become very complicated. Things have become very complicated now. So it ultimately went to Z like this. Now the problem is A writes a letter to the company that my share certificate are stolen. It is forged. Don't register any transfer. In the meantime, the company has already removed A's name. B comes and tells, hey, look, you already registered the transfer in my name. I'm the member. Don't touch my name from the register of members. And Z says, between B to Z, there is no forgery involved. So B has genuinely transferred the shares. You made a mistake. You registered the transfer based on that. So you forget all these fellows. So you registered my name in my name. Registered the transfer in my name. What the company has to do? No logical answer. Same status quo. You can't change anything. The company has to listen to A. If you have registered the transfer in favor of B wrongly, cancel it. No legal position will change. Forgery will not give you better title. So the title itself has not gone. So what the company has to do? Cancel the registration in favor of B, restore back A's name in the register of members. So ask A to go. Come on here. You don't disturb me. You go. Now B is shouting. And the other affected party X is Z is shouting. The law beautifully says, B is shouting and says, because you did the registration of transfer in my favor, hereafter I have transferred. But then the legal position is stolen goods will not give you better title. So the company cannot argue with B or Z, but the company will be liable to pay compensation for the mistake they have done. B or Z, whatever it is, because you are withdrawing the title. That is why when you issue a wrong registration of transfer, you have to be very careful. When you issue a duplicate certificate, you have to be very careful. So the responsibility is put on the company. Now Z says, no, I don't want compensation and all. I want registration of transfer. No, you are never the owner. This is the legal position. And ultimately, come on, the dispute has to be settled in a court of law. But in the second situation, the main point what we are observing is because this registration of transfer was done by the company may go and argue in the court. That is another issue. But as of now, the company will be liable to pay compensation or even damages to the affected party. This legal position you must know. From this, what do you understand? Company has to be very careful. Situation 3, things became very complicated. Almost like situation 2. The forgery was done, it went to B. B sent it to the company for registration or transfer. But before effecting registration of transfer, the company took one precaution. What precaution the company took? They sent a notice to A. Hey, Mr. A, your shares have come for transfer. I hope you have no objection. If you have any objection, please reply to us within 10 or 15 days. The stupid fellow A kept quiet. Probably he was sleeping like Kumbhakarna. Then when no reply came, the company went ahead, registered the transfer in favor of B. And finally, it went to Z and all. Now, after registration is over, this Kumbhakarna got up from sleep. And after 1 or 2 months, he writes a letter, I've lost the share certificate. Very complicated. The company took the precaution, but still A says, I've lost the share certificate. No logical answer. Status quo. Here also what? Same, cancel the registration of transfer. Restore A's name in the register of members. Company has to pay compensation to the affected party. Stolen goods will not give you better title. Same status quo, no change. But one extra point is, since the company has taken precaution, company is liable to pay compensation to affected party. Now the company will ask Mr. A, stupid fellow, donkey monkey, please come here. When I wrote a letter, you kept quiet, and now you are saying this. Please reimburse the loss and damage. So the company can recover the compensation from A. This is the legal position we must know. So from all the three discussions, what we have is responsibility is put on the company. How you take precaution, you take precaution. The point of discussion is, if you have wrongly registered, forgery will not give you better title. If you have wrongly registered and done the registration of transfer of shares, withdraw it, cancel it, withdraw the title. And if you withdraw the title, you have to pay compensation to the affected party. So A will not be affected. And only thing, if you have taken the precautions from A, you can recover the compensation from A. So this is the very interesting point. So this is what I told you in terms of theory. The forged transfer will not have legal effect. The forgery, there is no transfer of ownership. Original transferor remains as a member entitled to dividend. And when the company is forged and all, the true owner can apply and get back his name. So when you are sold it to innocent buyer, same thing I told you, you have to pay compensation. Situation 3, the position remains the same. Even if the company has given notice and he did not respond to the notice, but you are entitled to compensation. So this sentence is the ultimate. The company should take extraordinary care for registration of transfer, failing which they'll be liable for wrong registration of transfer. So in this context, let us read the legal effects of a share certificate, estoppel as to title. In this context now, it is very easy for me to explain. What do you mean by estoppel as to a title? Which means, if the company has wrongly issued a share certificate, wrongly is a broad word. It could be duplicate share certificate was issued by mistake when original was there in the market, or wrongly they did the registration of transfer and issued the share certificate to B, and when A is disputing, I am the owner, wrongly issued a share certificate in favor of a person. Later on, the company cannot dispute in what circumstances I made the mistake. Estoppel, stopped from denying the title. You will be liable for compensation to the affected party when you deny the title. That is the first legal effect. If you are wrongly given a share certificate and later on you withdraw the share certificate, withdraw the title, you are liable to pay compensation to the affected party. Estoppel as to title. Then the same example I had already given. Estoppel as to payment, second legal effect. As I told you, there will be space in the share certificate to make endorsement for the calls, whatever money they are paid. In one situation, what happened was, they made a call of 5 rupees. One shareholder did not pay the call. I repeat, he did not pay the call, but he sent it for endorsement. The company secretary, by mistake or otherwise, made an endorsement. Without receiving the call money, he made an endorsement on the share certificate stating that the calls are paid. Then the market went in the market. It went in the market. Then later on, when it went in the market, later on, the company realized the mistake. Now it was in the hands of some person. They asked him to pay the call money. That fellow said, get lost. Once the company, estoppel as to payment, once the company has made a wrong endorsement that it has received the payment without actually receiving the payment, you are to suffer. In other words, if the wrong endorsement is made stating a receipt, company alone shall be liable for the wrong endorsement. Then what happened? From whom will recover that 5 rupees? Company is losing. Recover from the company secretary, recover from the director. So two legal effects of share certificate is one, once you have issued a share certificate and you try to withdraw, you have to pay compensation. Estoppel, stopped from denying the title. Second one, you made a wrong endorsement regarding receipt of payment without actually receiving. It is as good as you have received the payment. you have to suffer. These are the two legal effects of a share certificate. Then we will now move on to buyback of shares. Before buyback, one issue. Company prohibited to purchase or finance their own shares, section 67. All of you know, once the shares are issued, it becomes a permanent capital base and the company cannot purchase its own shares, unlike in case of partnership or proprietorship. In partnership, you can withdraw the capital, isn't it? Drawings and all you can do, but in the Companies Act, all that is not possible. Why? Because the creditors are already suffering because of limited liability. The hanging sword in the head of the creditor, limited liability. So if this section 67 is not there, what will happen? The board of directors know that the company is not doing well. They will sell all the assets and return back the money, purchase the shares of the shareholder, indirectly returning back, and then announce liquidation. And the creditors will get buckets and broomsticks. So to protect the creditors, this section is there that the company should not purchase its own shares. And even if you go for winding up, the other day I told you, creditors are to be paid first before the equity and preference shareholders are to be paid. This is to protect the creditors. So even now, section 67 is there. The company cannot purchase its own shares. But then how did you introduce buyback? When even now your interest is to protect the creditors, we will not allow the company to purchase its own shares. All that is you have understood and realized. But how you allowed buyback? In section 68, it starts with notwithstanding anything contained in this act. So buyback is more an exception rather than routine. So therefore, a company cannot purchase its own shares unless it involves reduction of capital with tribunal approval, which we saw. And you could not allow indirectly also any person to purchase their shares. And a public company should not finance the purchase of its own shares. However, there are some exceptions. These exceptions, you can take back the shares because there's already enough safeguards. Redemption of preference shares, that is also a kind of buyback and cancelling it. But that is permitted because already you have got enough safeguards like CRR account and all that. Then lending of money by a banking company in the ordinary course of business. This is more from the practical angle. Suppose a company gives a personal loan, a bank gives a personal loan, banking company, to some fellow. And that fellow may use that money to purchase the shares. That fellow may use the money to purchase the shares. So how can I monitor? So the Banking Regulation Act itself will take care of such situation, hence the exception. Third one, normally what happens, the company tends to allot lot of shares to the employees for the employee benefit. And the employees have to pay. They don't have money. What the company will do, they will give loans to the employees. And using that loan, they will purchase the shares of the company. Blatant violation of section 66, you cannot finance the purchase of the shares. But this is permitted because there are inbuilt restrictions. So this is for the benefit of the employees. So one is how much loan the company can give, not exceeding 6 months salary. Then second one is you are under a scheme, stock option schemes or something like that, some other scheme, they are already regulated. So therefore you can give to the employees. This section will not apply. Now come to forfeiture of shares also is not attracting the section because you don't refund the money. Unlimited company can purchase the shares because anyhow the liability is unlimited. Now one very interesting amendment has taken place. This section will not apply to private company. What section? Company should not purchase its own shares. The whole section will not apply to private company in whose share capital no body corporate has invested any money. That means what? The members of that private company are all individuals. No other body corporate's money has come inside. Public money has not come inside. And then how much you have borrowed? Borrowings is less than twice the paid up share capital or 50 crores, whichever is less. So your debt equity is not more than 2:1. That means if you have invested 1 rupee, you have not borrowed more than 2 rupees. Third one, even the borrowings from banks, financial institutions, or whatever it is, there is no default in the repayment of interest or capital as per the terms. You are a law-abiding company. Pure private company, no public money has come inside. Debt equity does not exceed 2:1. Even the debt, you are prompt in repaying the interest and principal as per the terms. This section will not apply. What does it mean? What does it mean? You mean to say a private company can purchase back the shares, cancel it? Then why reduction of capital provisions? Why buyback of shares provisions? Then what is this exemption? When this amendment was introduced, to my shock and surprise, when I met registrar, all other people, no one is able to tell this. Section will not apply to private company means what? That any time can I purchase the shares in the market? Yes. And you can keep it. You cannot cancel it. So even I am not aware the implication of this. Maybe some of the participants can enlighten me of this at a later time. There's a section which says private company, you see, reduction of capital will apply, buyback all will apply, you have to follow the procedure. But this section, company should not purchase its own shares. This will not apply, which means is very confusing for me, which means you can purchase the shares in the market and don't pass any cancelling entry. Then how will you show in the books? How will you show in your books? You will show as investment in your own shares in the asset side. So this is one area. I'll leave it for discussion. Now come to buyback of shares. Section 68, 69, and 70. Now I'll take a few minutes to explain this very important topic. Company is a limited company. Protecting the creditors is of paramount importance. So even now, we have not removed section 67. Company should not purchase their own shares to protect the creditors. When the Companies Act has worked so well for the last 200 years plus, what suddenly happened? What suddenly happened in the economic situation in the country about 20 years back, 15, 20 years back, which necessitated the government to introduce buyback of shares? You understood my point? You want to protect the creditors. Company should not purchase back the shares. Even though you are retained as section 67, understanding the importance, then why buy back? Why you are allowed? One thing is stringent conditions are put and you allow buyback. My point is, why do you allow buyback? Since I was the consultative committee in the parliament when this concept was introduced, I know some background. I'll quickly share with you. First, now some of the examples, some of the figures I tell may not be accurate. It really happened, but this is only for understanding purpose. In yesterday's discussion in differential issue of shares, differential rights in the issue of shares, I told one point, 90% of the companies are first generation promoters. I restricted my discussion with listed companies. Now go back to private public companies, all put together, say around 11 lakh companies are there in India. The complete industrial and agriculture wealth or total wealth of the country, business wealth. In that also the percentage is almost nearer. 10% only are Tatas, Birlas and all, 90% are first generation promoter. And also I told you, when it is a first generation promoter, you know, the existing promoters is not sitting in piles of money. So whatever money he has got, he has already invested. And everywhere on an average, the promoter's contribution will be around 10 to 15% or maximum 20%. So rest 80% they have taken from banks, financial institutions, mutual funds, and general public, and they are running the show. And I also told you, takeover of companies is the order of the day. This is the observation I made. I will continue that observation. We want foreign funds coming inside the country. The world has become a smaller village. We are talking of liberalization, globalization, all those things. So foreign investment has to come. You cannot stop it, but you can regulate it. That's all. So today we are living in a world of takeovers, mergers and takeovers. If you see the institute's program, whether the chapter or branch or anywhere, are 60 to 70% of the total programs of the year are somehow connected with mergers, takeovers and all that. It's the order of the day. Right. I will share with you one small example of takeover. It's open, so therefore there's nothing wrong in repeating this. Everyone knows it. Before my qualification, as soon as I qualified, I joined Rasi Cements Limited in Hyderabad. I'm talking 25 years back story when B.V. Raju, the kingpin, he was alive. And I was a group secretary for about 14, 15 companies in the Rasi group of companies. Registered office at Panchagutta, B.V. Raju, the kingpin. Great man, great industrialist. He was a managing director of Cement Corporation of India. He was a Padma Shri Awardee. After that, he set up the Rasi group of companies in Hyderabad. I learned time, sense, commitment and all from this great man. Right. Quickly summarizing the whole story. If you look at the share, the Rasi Cements Limited, the turnover was 600-700 crores those days, doing very well, having a good share of cement in the market in South India, blah, blah, blah. 10 rupees share was quoting 60-70 rupees. They were doing extremely well. Now, those days, SEBI guideline, nothing was there. And if you look at the shareholding pattern, B.V. Raju was holding, and his wife, they were holding around 7-8% shares. B.V. Raju doesn't have sons. He has got 3 daughters. In son-in-law's name, they were holding around 10% shares. The figures is only for understanding. Then APIDC, they were holding about 10% shares. IDBA was holding some 10% shares. Almost the rest of the 60% was held 60+% by the general public. Then how B.V. Raju was running the management with the support of public, APIDC, Industries Development Corporation and IDBA and all, and their promoter group, that is daughters and A put together, some 15 to 18% he was having shares. Company was doing very well. The predator came. Chennai Super Kings, Mr. Srinivasan, I think all of you know, India Cements Limited Managing Director. His lifetime ambition was to take over the company. It is worth converting into a feature film. All the masala ingredients are there in this. If someone is interested, I will give the story free of cost. So, what India Cements Managing Director did was, those days no SEBI guidelines, no regulation at all. He started purchasing about 10% shares in the open market in different names, so that no one came to know that he was purchasing. That's all. After purchasing 10% shares, he directly took a flight and came to Hyderabad, stayed in the 5-star hotel. When B.V. Raju was not here, he was in the office, he directly went to his son-in-law's house and told bluntly that the market value is about 60 rupees, I'll give you 70-75 rupees. Lifetime opportunity to all of you. Straight away, hundreds of crores cash with me. That's all, story is over. All the son-in-law signed the document and their 10% shares was handed over to him. Then he went back to the hotel. Then this APIDC, they are all corrupted financial institutions. Somehow he got hold of some MLA and their 7-8% he purchased. Story is over. He was having around 10 plus 8 plus 10, around 25% shares. B.V. Raju was having only 8%. IDBA will support him 18%. And that's all. He went to the hotel, took rest. He was very tired because of the day was very tough for him. Then in the evening around 5 o'clock, he came to B.V. Raju's office. I was there. Though I left that company, I was a consultant to him. 5:30 entered the company. Bivraju knows him because they are on the Chamber of Commerce there and all. She was nice, very fair. He told. So Bivraju was very happy. Hey, come on, Srinivasan, how are you? And all, so nice. You have come all the way to meet this old man, all that, blah, blah. But Srinivasan told, sorry, sir. I have not brought good news to you. Open, I'll tell you. Your story is over. I purchased your company. Sir, I had purchased 10% shares in the open market, and your son-in-laws have sold another 10%, so 8%, and then APDC has given 10%, 28% is in my favor. You have only 8% with you. IDBI support will be 18%. My only request is, please sell your 8% also to me. I will definitely pay you a higher price. Just imagine how you'll be feeling. Here is a man who was, every brick in the Rasi Cements will talk of Bivraju. For 10 to 15 years, he used his sweat and blood to construct that great company. And here is a man who has destroyed the whole thing in 5 minutes. He is saying, get up. It all happened to some 25, 30 years back. I feel as if it's happening now. Then Bivraju said, get lost, this, that, and all. But then Srinivasan said, I'm staying in this hotel. I will also behave like this only. I give you time up to 12 o'clock. If you don't surrender your shares, I'll go to the open market and purchase the shares at 80 rupees, 90 rupees. I'll take over your management. Now, the whole night, Bivraju did not sleep. He was mobilizing money, this, that, and all. But the problem now is, both ways Bivraju will lose. For example, if he has to counter Srinivasan, he has to purchase another at least 10% shares. Some crores of rupees are required by tomorrow morning. And tomorrow both are going to come to the open market. And the game is, he is ready to offer 85, 90 or even 100 rupees Srinivasan. And you go to the open market, you have to offer more than 100 rupees. Suppose you spend crores of rupees and purchase the shares, Srinivasan only will sell. Because the open market, whoever sells, you have to purchase. And Srinivasan purchased all those shares at 60 rupees, 50 rupees average. He'll be too glad to sell it at 100 rupees and he will make money and go away. And thereafter, after Bivraju purchases all the shares at a higher amount, now the takeover game is stopped. Then over. You cannot do anything. Next day, the price will come back. If you take crores of rupees as loan and purchase and retain the company, you lose at the fag end of your life thousands of crores. If you don't purchase, that's all, you lose the company. Whole night, I don't want to give more details. I still remember I went to the hotel, brought Mr. Srinivasan, and Bivraju got up and told, come on, take over my chair. The balance 8% also I'm handing over. Why I told this example of takeover is, this is not the story of one Rasi Cements or Rasi Cements or India Cements takeover. This is the position of 90% of the companies in India, first generation promoter, the fear of takeover. Let's understand this. Right. And that incident, I remember, Bivraju made one remark. Bivraju said, I know this will happen. There are a lot of floating stock shares in the open market. Very good observation. He said, I don't have money. Look at the observation. I don't have money. But the Rasi Cements Limited had a lot of surplus cash. The stupid government doesn't allow buyback because of your section. Had they allowed buyback, Bivaraju's argument is, I would have used the company's money with proper safeguards and I would have purchased the floating shares in the market and cancelled them. You got the point? So I can avoid all these takeovers. Very valid point. So based on this, buyback was allowed. So the idea is, when the company has got surplus cash with them, why should they unnecessarily fund the share capital through payment of dividend and all? So buyback was allowed. And similarly, another example, like the figures may not be correct, say Reliance Industries has got 20,000 crore shares. Those days, Dhirubhai Ambani required money and he has taken all that. And today, Reliance has made a policy, let us say, to declare 100% dividend. What? 1 rupee invested in the company, what is the outflow? 1 rupee. What is the cost of capital? Dhirubhai Ambani or Mukesh Ambani says, look, I will not reduce the rate of dividend. But what is the cost of capital? So please allow buyback. Then what they will do? They will reduce the capital and substitute with the debt funds. Debt funds are available cheaper in the market. Tax deduction is also available. Effective cost of capital will be 12-13%. So they announced buyback with proper safeguards. I thought I will just share this with you. So what are the conditions of buyback? So it should be a profit-making company, protecting the creditors. So buyback can be done only out of general reserves, securities premium, and proceeds of fresh shares. No using the working capital and all, you do the buyback, just like we saw in redemption of preference shares. All that is come back in buyback. And no buyback can be done through earlier proceeds of shares. When the buyback is done, you have to create a CRR, similar to what we discussed in this redemption of preference shares. So the long term, the capital should not be redeemed out of working capital. The long-term fund should not be redeemed to protect the creditors. Then, conditions of buyback. It should be authorized by the articles. Special resolution has to be passed. So take the consent of the shareholders. Let them understand how they'll be benefited because of buyback. What could be the impact on the prices of shares in the market before buyback, after buyback. So all this you tell them. And now the buyback is or less than 25% of the paid up capital free reserves. Per financial year, it should not exceed 25%. The most important guideline. That means 25% of the paid up capital and free reserves, total buyback. That means you can do 100% buyback if your free reserves are more. Suppose your paid up capital is 100 crores, free reserves are 400 crores, so 500 crores. Okay, 25% is how much? 125 crores complete, you can do buyback. So don't follow more on this figure. Don't follow more on this figure. Then he says, per financial year, don't buy back more than 25% of the equity. So it's a reducing the balance method. So the more the reserves you have got, the more you can do buyback because it's accumulated profits with you. The more the reserves you have got, the more you can do buyback. So per financial year, it should not exceed 25%. Then most important guideline, the board can do 10% of the buyback. If you want to go up to 25%, special members approval required. The board themselves want to do, go up to 10% of paid up capital free reserves. Debt equity should not be more than twice the capital after the buyback. Understand the implication of this. I've done some study and let me tell you today, whether it is a private, public or listed, unlisted company, debt equity of most of the companies is hankering around 5:1. Because term loan itself, bank financial institutions are giving 2:1, 2:1. Then working capital, then debentures, then loans. If you see, analyze a balance sheet, my experience tells me debt equity is minimum 5:1. 1 rupee invested in the company, you already borrowed 5 rupees. In this context, please read. After the buyback, it should not exceed 2:1. Means what? That means now after the buyback 25%, 0.75, debt should not exceed 1.5. I had a debt of 5 rupees. Now it should not exceed 1.5. Means what? 3.5 rupees return back. Buyback is not that simple. Or your 3.5 rupees if I have to return back, then from where? Sell the assets and return. What? No buyback. So buyback is, these are inbuilt guidelines to protect the creditors. If it is equity based with less debt, then probably we'll allow buyback. The implication of that. Then rest are all, it should be fully paid up. Then listed company, some more regulations, unlisted company this, and the buyback should be completed within 12 months. Because if you go to the open market to purchase the shares, what will happen? Demand supply gap, then the prices will zoom up. So you should not disturb the market demand supply position. Go and sit down in the open market. Whenever the prices come down, come on, you buy back and cancel it. So to a complete 12 months time is given to you. Explanatory statement should give all this disclosed. No secret buybacks and all. Let it be transparent with shareholders approval and all. Then how do you do the buyback? Three methods. Existing shareholders and proportionate basis. This is not popular because it will disturb the market left and all that. Best is open market. Go and sit down like an investor in the stock market. As and when it comes, you purchase. Or you purchase from the employees. So from this, what you understand, selective buyback is allowed only from the employees. You can't do selective buyback only from the mutual funds, only from NRIs, only from particular promoter shareholders. No, because the price variation, equal opportunity will be affected. So the next one, then you have to file the special resolution with the registrar and SEBI. And after you buy back, destroy all the certificates within 7 days. They are very particular about it. Physical shares, otherwise it will again go to the market and go for circulation. So all these guidelines you'll have to follow. No further issue should be done within 6 months. Very fair enough. Why did you go for buyback? You went for buyback thinking that we have surplus cash and all. Then suddenly you got a future program and you require cash. So do it after 6 months. But these things will be permitted because there is no outflow of cash, bonus shares, stock option, conversions and all that. Maintain one register, file the returns with ROC and all. This was about the buyback of shares. Then prohibition of buyback. So if it is not there, the indirect buybacks will be done. So if in a group, if Rasi Cement's shares cannot be purchased back, there is Rasi Finance. If this point is not there, what will happen? Rasi Finance will purchase all the shares of Rasi Cement's in the open market and keep it. That is also not permitted. Through the subsidiary company, through the investment company, you cannot do it. I will give this opportunity for buyback only for law-abiding companies. You have defaulted in the deposits, repayment of interest, debentures, dividend to preference shares, loans, the interest to the banks, no buyback. These are all to protect the creditors. And you have to remedy the default and wait for a period of 3 years. Then, if you have not filed this annual returns, financial statements, the dividends have not been properly paid, stop your buyback. So this was all the discussion on buyback of shares. Quickly run through transfer of shares. And you all know that share is a movable commodity which can be transferred from one person to another. This is the beauty of the company. Unlike in case of partnership, where the partnership interest cannot be transferred from one person to another without the consent, shares are movable property. Even in private company, there are only restrictions on shares, some procedural restrictions. Otherwise, shares can be easily transferred. The articles can only regulate it. Now, you know, transfer of shares is one issue. Registration of transfer is another issue. As between A and B, transfer is over the moment the instrument of transfer is signed and share certificate is given to B. As far as B is concerned, you make the payment, transfer is over. But as far as company is concerned, only when the registration is affected by removing A's name and putting the B's name, it is complete. So now what happens is, in a situation pending registration of transfer, come on, A is a member, but not a shareholder. He has sold the shares and he will get all the dividends, right shares, bonus shares and all that. B is a shareholder, not a member. But then the law says, since B has got equitable interest in such situations, after the transfer is over, but registration is not yet over, though B cannot claim anything from the company, B can claim from A through a court of law mechanism, the dividends, right shares, bonus shares, and all that. What is the procedure for transfer of shares? Only for physical shares. These things will not apply for demat. Come on, there's a form number SH4. No other method of transfer is permitted. That SH4 form, both the transfer and transferee has to be filled up. proper stamps has to be affixed, and then the filled in instrument signed by both transfer or transferee along with the share certificate must be delivered to the company within 60 days from the date of the instrument. So the instrument, once you have dated it, is valid only for 60 days. Then what the company will do, the moment you get this periodical lot of transfers, we'll keep a checklist and verify all this. If it is as per checklist, we'll keep it. Otherwise, we'll return for rectification. 2-3 points, please remember. If it is partly paid up shares, and if you effect the transfer will be liable to pay the balance calls. So remind the transferee. Send a notice to transferee, hey, look, this partly paid up shares. So if registration of transfer is affected in your favor, you will be liable. So giving notice is compulsory. And suppose if it is minor, the transferee is a minor, ensure it is fully paid up. The other day I told you, otherwise you suffer a lot. So after scrutiny, you write the details in the share transfer register, all the details, and keep it with you. Once in a month or so, when the board meeting is held or share transfer committee meeting is there, you just put up and get it approved and pass a board resolution. And thereafter, what do? You separate the share transfer deed and share certificate. Share transfer deed is the property of the company which will be kept on the basis of which it was done. And the certificate of share certificate in the back side, you fill up all the details and send it to the transferor or transferee, whomsoever has sent it to you. Then update the register of members, remove the transferor's name and write the transferee's name. So this was quickly. Now, you have lost the instrument of transfer. Share certificate is there. After it is signed by transferor or transferee, the transferee lost the instrument of transfer. Then what shall I do? You don't have to go to transferor and request for another thing. He will not give you. So if it is lost, what you do is just make an application to the company, affix the stamp duty. Government should not lose the revenue. And you have to satisfy the board of directors how it was lost. Give an affidavit, give an indemnity bond, all this. After you finish the formalities, based on the letter, the board will treat something, the letter itself as instrument of transfer, together with the affidavit and all, and they will effect the registration of transfer. Now come to refusal to register the transfer of shares. All of you are aware, in the last 10 years, in a public company, whether listed or not, registration of transfer of shares is automatic. The board has no powers to refuse registration of transfer on any ground. Here in DMAT, company is not doing registration of transfer. It is automatically done by the depository. So for unlisted public companies also, their demand, when there itself it is permitted, what is the position with respect to private company? The position is different. I am talking of when the board of directors can refuse registration of transfer of shares. The first one is the preemptive clause, the procedure. The other day I told you, in the articles you have a procedure. What procedure? If anyone wants to sell the shares, he has to give a notice to the board of directors, and the board will value it and give notice to all the existing shareholders that Mr. Chairman wants to sell the shares. If any of the existing member is interested, then I have to give the shares to him only. If none of them are interested, then we'll sell it to outsider. This preemptive clause procedure has to be followed. Otherwise, the board should not make registration of transfer, which is not there obviously in a public company. Second, surprisingly, even today, the articles of a private company can authorize the board to refuse registration of transfer on specific grounds. This facility is not there in public company. In public company, takeovers are all automatic. But in private company, what are the grounds? Very specific grounds in which we can refuse registration of transfer. Board. One, if the transfer partly paid up shares transferred to a minor or financially incapable person. Obviously, you can stop transfer because minor will not pay the money, or financially incapable person. Suppose you transfer the shares in favor of or in favor of some fellow who is declared insolvent or he has become insane, all that. where the call money has not been paid. Very interesting. The board has powers. Please pay the call money. Then only I'll register the transfer. Excised lien, same logic. Instrument is incomplete, irregular, or any other just and equitable reason in the best interest of the company. So you can still, there are provisions to refuse registration of transfer in today's environment. Then what happens if you refused, if the board says I will not register the transfer, then the procedure to be followed in private companies, within 30 days from the receipt of the instrument, the company has to transfer or send a notice that we are not registering the transfer due to so reason. Then the transferee, within 30 days thereafter, can go to tribunal. Or if you don't give a reply also, within 60 days from the date you are deposited the instrument to the company, you can go to tribunal. Then what the tribunal will do? They will decide. They will accept or dismiss or whatever it is, absolute. And once you get a positive order, then the company has to register the transfer within 10 days. Then direct the registration, and they may award pay compensation also or damages, whatever it is. Violation of this is a very severe punishment. The rectification of register of members by the tribunal. See, going to the tribunal, asking them for registration of transfer in their favor is a separate section. This section 59 is a separate section. What is this section? I am not a member of the company. My name appears in the register of members. I'll ask the company to delete. If they don't delete, go to the tribunal. Without sufficient cause, my name is entered in the register of members. Second, having entered in the register of members without sufficient cause, they have deleted it. I hold the share certificate. I have all the evidence. Go to tribunal. Default or unnecessary delay takes place. Go to tribunal. So all these facilities are available. You can go to the tribunal and they will, after hearing, they'll dismiss or within 10 days, ask them to register the transfer. This is very interesting. Just because you have gone to the tribunal, until the decision of the tribunal is given to you, the person whose name appears in the register of members, he will only enjoy all the membership, unless the tribunal said, put a stay on that. Default punishable. Blank transfer. Of course, now with DMAT coming, all this has become redundant. It is only with respect to private companies. Generally, when A sells the shares to B, B will not be interested to get the registration done in his name unless he has some benefit. That is, the company is declaring dividend or right shares or bonus shares and all. Why will I unnecessarily pay stamp duty and send it to company for registration? I will not do it. So in blank transfer, what happens? A fills up the instrument of transfer with the transfer or particulars, A's particulars, and along with the share certificate, he will hand out to B. B will not write anything. And B wants to sell the shares to C, he will just hand over the documents to him. Then from C it goes to D. These are called blank transfers. And ultimately, so bank transfer is allowed for 60 days now, because if you date it, by within 60 days, it has to go to the company for registration of transfer. So ultimately, if the company, if any transferee feels there is some benefit in becoming member, then what he will do? He will effect the registration of transfer. He will send it to company, fill up the particulars, stamp duty. The whole game is called blank transfers. So until here, what is the legal effect? Though the shares have gone from A to B, B to C, D and all, as per the records of the company, it is as if he has sold to Z. So all this in-between transfers, the company is not bothered. Generally, when you pledge the shares in a bank, you go for blank transfer. But nowadays, they are very careful. They are asking you to transfer the shares in their name. Sorry. Then one big risk is there in the blank transfer. What is the risk? A has sold the shares to B, B to C, C to D. It is blank transfer which is going on. Then suddenly A died. As per law, come on, the legal representative will get the right. No. So even that safeguard is there in the Companies Act. In the blank transfer, the legal representative of A, even though A's name is in the register of members, will not get any right. Then, it's don't compare with negotiable instrument. The features of negotiable instrument are not applicable. Blank transfer is done as regulated under the articles as per the Companies Act. Transmission of shares. I'll spend some time on this. Transmission of shares. You all know when a member dies or becomes insolvent or insane, the property will go to legal representative in case of death and official assignee or receiver in case of insolvency or insanity. This process of going to these people are called transmission. And there is no consideration involved, so no question of any instrument, stamp duty and all. First issue. If the shares are held jointly, A, B, C are holding the shares jointly, one of them died. No big deal. The company cannot insist on any other document. They'll ask the death certificate and other evidences, proofs, and then if A has died, automatically the shares will be transmitted in favor of B and C. We as professionals must educate all our family members to keep the shares in joint names. This is the great advantage. I have seen in many families, unfortunately, the husband died and the wife, she is already in grief, 3-4 children. She runs pillar to post to get many certificates. Please let us avoid this. Even house also, when you purchase, you should purchase in joint property. Land you should purchase jointly. Bank accounts you should open jointly. There are a lot of facilities. So come back. So when the shares are allotted jointly and one of them dies, no big deal, no procedures. The deceased name will be removed and it will continue with the other joint holder's name. When there was a single holder and he dies, the company has to insist on any one of the 3 documents. Probate of will. In India, who prepares the will? Will you have to prepare. Once a person crosses 60 plus, he has got a lot of self-acquired property, you have to prepare will. Certain negligence will cause great loss to us. Everyone who has crossed 50 plus or 60 plus or is not keeping good health, he has to prepare a will. Otherwise, the succession and all is so difficult. So court-registered will is probate of will, succession certificate. Very unfortunately, my brother-in-law died at a very young age, my only sister. When the brother-in-law died of cancer and all that, I had to go pillar to post run around. It takes 5 to 10 years by a court to give a succession certificate. By the time, the successor also will die. In the meantime, letter of administration can be given till you get the succession certificate. That is also given by the court. So practically for effecting transmission, when you don't have a registered will and succession certificate and letter of administration is not there, it is real hell. But the law is very clear. So what they have done in case of small shareholding, what is small shareholding depends on facts of the case. It could be 500 shares or 1,000 shares. This is a big risk which the company takes. There's no law stating this. So what you do for 100 shares where she will run, so we insist on death certificate and the affidavit, affirmation from the legal representative that I am the legal wife, so and so, blah, blah, blah. One indemnity bond from them. Tomorrow, if I effect the wrong transmission, I will take the responsibility. And one deed of relinquishment. Suppose there may be 5-6 legal heirs. Usually the transmission will be done in favor of one person. So the remaining 4-5 persons has to relinquish their right in favor of that person. Deed of relinquishment. So these 3 documents we will take and effect the transmission of shares. And please, I told you the other day, once the transmission is effected in favor of legal representative, many of us have forgotten all this. You will not automatically become member. Your legal transmission is over, you are not a member. If you want to become a member, again you have to make an application, a white paper, and affix stamps, and then only then you can become a member. Deceased fellow's name will be removed. So he holds a separate status. So without becoming a member, you can get the right shares, bonus shares, dividend and all, but you cannot attend the meeting. So we cannot allow this fellow to continue like this. So what happens? We send a letter to him. Within 90 days, you decide. You can't continue as legal representative. All this you have to follow in a private company. So after sending the letter, the legal representative have two options. One, you yourself become the member of the company, or sell the shares as if you are the transferor. So do either of these two. If you do it, excellent. If you don't do it, I'll stop your dividends, bonus and all. Then what about the deceased member unpaid calls? Yes, the legal representative has to pay, not out of his own money. Only when the estate of the deceased member is there, he will pay. This is all about transmission. Now we have seen how difficult it is to effect transmission in terms of documentation. So to avoid all this, nomination facility has now come. Better late than never. So now every holder of the security word is used. So for shares, for debentures, for deposits, the person can give a nomination. The advantage in nomination is once he dies, come on, the company need not verify anything. And who is the nominee? Take his identity and directly transmit the shares in his favor. So nomination has to be done. And if joint holding, can you do the nomination? Yes. All the joint holders must nominate only one person. But in that case, only when all the joint holders die, the nominee will be effective. Then it so happens A has nominated B on his death in the nomination. But A has written in the will D's name. In some other documents, A has written E, F, G, H. Now, when the person dies, all the legal documents are brought to the company. The law makes it very clear that the nomination when made is the main document, to the exclusion of all the persons. Nomination is the main document. And if you want to change, you can change the nomination also. Simple procedure. Then can you nominate a minor? Can you nominate a minor? Yes. You nominate a minor. What is wrong? Sir, if the shares are partly paid up and transmission is made in favor of minor, don't worry. Anyhow, you'll ask him, come on, you pay the call money or you transfer the shares. If he pays the call money only, you make him as a member. That's it. Otherwise, let him transfer the shares as such. Otherwise, stop all this proceeds. So transmitting in the favor of minor cannot be stopped as such. And lot of punishment is there if you impersonate benami shares and all. If you do imprisonment, fine, all that is there. I will now quickly run through the topic of debentures. For private company, the portions are very less. Debenture is a debt document. It is like a loan. Sir, when it is a loan, then why don't we call it as loan? What is the technical difference between loan and debenture? There are common points. One is interest will be paid, whether you earn profit or not. Then loan will be repaid, debentures also will be repaid, all those things. But the two major difference between loan and debenture is, loan is a consolidated amount. In debenture, the entire loan is divided into small parts, and each such part is called debenture. And second, obviously, will be, in loan, you take from banks, financial institutions, or 2-3 parties. When debentures, you take it from thousands of people. So what he has done, the two features of shares he has taken, like share, debenture each, and number of people. And rest of the points of loan he has taken. So this is called debenture. The Companies Act says debenture is a evidence of debt, debenture certificate. Right. It's an acknowledgement. Next. Debentures usually provide for redemption, but not essential. Irredeemable debentures also you can use. You can issue without any undertaking to pay. And whenever you got funds, you can pay it. That is permitted. So don't be under the impression debentures must have a due date for redemption. Not necessary. Debenture usually provide for payment of interest. Hey, what is this usually provide? Who will take zero interest debentures if issued? Convertible debentures. So if the terms or conversion is so much in favor, I don't mind losing interest for 2-3 years. So zero interest debentures also will be taken, particularly convertible debentures. Then debentures will be issued in a series. I told this when I was discussing preference shares. So 6% debentures redeemable after 10 years for 10 lakhs. Then 8% debentures redeemable after 4 years for 25 lakhs. So each will be a series. I told you equity shares you cannot do, but in preference shares you can do. But if you don't issue as a series, then every debenture will be treated as a separate debenture. And debentures are normally secured over the assets. When I go to deposits, we'll discuss. If you issue unsecured debentures, it is equivalent to deposits. So you have to comply with the rules of deposits also. So debentures are usually secured over the assets. Debentures will not carry any voting rights. Debenture is not a ownership capital. New ideas are coming. Convertible debentures also, only after conversion, it gets the share capital character. So no question of any kind of voting rights can be given to debentures. Then convertible debentures require shareholders approval. What is debenture stock? Just as share stock, debenture stock is also consolidated amount. There won't be breakup, number of debentures, then nominal value, total amount. That breakup will not be there. It's a debenture stock. Now, secured debentures, what are the guidelines? I am restricting my discussion only with reference to private company, not to public or listed company. Secured debentures can be made for a period of redemption not exceeding 10 years. Unsecured, you can give it, but secured debentures, you have to redeem within a period of 10 years. But for certain companies, you can issue debentures between 10 to 30 years also. We're setting up infrastructure finance companies, infrastructure debt finance NBFC companies, they are permitted. Otherwise, manufacturing other companies, private companies has to issue debentures redeemable within 10 years. And since they are secured, this amended area, you are secured over the assets of the company. So naturally, for security, you have to give your own assets. No, the properties and assets of the company, subsidiary company, holding company can also be given. And to that extent, you can have secured debentures cover. Then the security can be created by way of charge on specific movable property of the company, holding company and subsidiary company, immovable property wherever situated. And in NBFC, the charge mortgage can be created. One more thing, is it compulsory to create a debenture trust? Not required. Only when you have 500 members or it's a listed company, creation of debenture trust is compulsory. I've checked up in many books, though it's not so clear in the Companies Act. For ordinary private companies, debenture trust need not be created, but you have to create a security and file it with the ROC. Debentures with pari passu clause. I already explained this. Equity shares are equal, but debentures can be used in series 1, series 2, series 3. Within the series, they are pari passu. Just like we discussed in preference shares, debentures when issued series 1, series 2, series 3, then tomorrow if the company goes into liquidation, first you should repay the first issued debentures. Then you should repay, if sufficient assets are the second issued debentures, like that. Similarly, payment of interest. First you pay interest on the first series, then second series, third series, because there is no pari passu clause. Within the series, there is pari passu clause, but 2 series, 3 series, there will be no pari passu clause as such. So a company cannot issue a new series to rank pari passu with the prior series unless the power is expressly reserved in the document. Convertible debentures. So convertible debentures, you can go for full conversion or partly convertible. Special resolution has to be passed because otherwise rights issue problem will come. You can go for convertible debentures. Now, creation of DRR, debenture redemption reserve. It's compulsory for private company also. So when you issue secured debentures and all, DRR has to be created out of profits. Now, how much DRR you have to create? 10% of the value of the debentures every year you have to create. The difference between DRR and CRR is created only at the time of redemption. But whereas DRR is created periodically, 10% on private placement basis in case of unlisted, that is private companies all. Then that out of that this, whatever DRR provision you have created, 15% has to be kept in certain accounts so that the debentures can be redeemed promptly. Same case is there in deposits also. You have to keep it in liquid assets like scheduled bank, unencumbered securities. So the idea here is to ensure liquidity. Suppose 1 crore with interest, 1 crore debentures are to be redeemed this year. Different dates are there. Then you keep that 15% so that there is no delay in the redemption of debentures. Then that money cannot be used for any other purpose. Then partly convertible debentures also to that extent. And you should not use it for any other purpose. Now, interest and redemption of debentures. A company shall pay interest and redeem the debentures in accordance with the issue. So it's a general thing. You have to pay the debentures on time, pay the interest and redeem. If the company fails to redeem the debentures, the tribunal on application of the debenture holder may ask them to redeem. Now look at the fun. It may be secured, it may not be secured. If it is secured, why don't you enforce the security? Go ahead. No. If it is unsecured, fine. Whether it is secured or unsecured, look at that one interesting point. Whether it is secured or unsecured, a debenture holder, if the interest and repayment is not done in time, he can go to tribunal. Special power. Then the company will argue before the tribunal, sir, we have given the security and that procedure is different. Sir, it is unsecured. In what way tribunal will interfere? Tribunal will interfere. Look at the extraordinary power. Tribunal will give orders for the redemption of debentures forthwith. Not general order, please redeem. They'll ask, come on, what are your assets? Come on, sell this land. Sell this plant and machinery. Look at the power of tribunal. Sir, it is unsecured, sir. I know that. I know that. Sir, it is secured. I know that. Look at the power. Any debenture holder, if there's a default, you can go to tribunal. And tribunal has to go through and give a date and time. How? Not only giving an order for redemption of debentures, they'll also tell how the debentures are to be redeemed. What period of time within which you'll redeem. And the contract with the company to take up and pay the debentures may be enforced on specific performance. You all know that when a contract is broken, the first remedy is damages or compensation. Specific performance means the affected party says, I don't want damages or compensation. Please give a direction that fellow to perform the contract. So in debentures also, if the company is not in a position to pay the interest or redemption, putting him into jail or putting compensation is secondary for me. I want specific performance order. I want my money back. The company has to perform the contract. So they will issue decree of specific performance apart from punishments or compensation, if any. This all can be done. Now, already I told you, can you issue debentures with voting rights? No. No company can issue. The idea is, even if it is convertible debentures, you convert it, then you'll have voting rights. So the idea is, they are only debt funds. They should not be put into any kind of advantageous position. So this was the discussion. So now, tomorrow, I will take up this deposits, a big subject of discussion. In deposits, we are and charges. It will take complete 2 hours. And if time permitting, I'll continue with the management and administration also. Now, in deposits, I would like to tell the members, don't miss the class, don't miss the session. Sorry, being a faculty, I always use the word class and all that. Don't miss the session, because we are all under the impression that no returns has to be filed with ROC in case of deposits and all. Not at all. DPT3 and all that, tremendous consequence will be there if you don't file it. So we have most misunderstood provision is deposits. Because why I'm telling this is, previously we were the impression private companies cannot accept deposits. No, in the new Companies Act, private companies can accept deposits from the members. And they come under the regulatory framework of deposits. And if you look at the restrictive clauses, previously in the old Companies Act, you had 4 restrictive clauses. Limits the number of members to 200, then limits the registration of transfer of shares, limits subscription of money from the public, limits the deposits. That 4th restrictive clause they have removed in the new Companies Act, which means a private company can accept deposits, not from the public, from the members. And they come under the regulatory framework. So tomorrow we'll spend time on that. Then, as our chairman has already announced, on Saturday also we'll have an extended session covering the balance areas. The timings will be from 3:30 to 5:30. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. Regarding the deposits, my presumption is also same, sir, but we should not accept any deposits, even from the own sources also. We should not put it into the company being a shareholder. Even as a director, we can put it. Just like that, there are so many apprehensions and connotations. Tomorrow we'll definitely attend the things and we'll get clarified from you. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much for the elaborate sessions today. And all dear members, as sir is informing you, tomorrow's session is going to be much more elaborative in 2 sessions. That is tomorrow and day after tomorrow by 3:30 to 5:30. Thank you one and all for the patient listening, and